Hi, I'm Emily, and I'm here to talk about my favorite books about the tarot and the decks that correspond with each book. And then I'm going to talk about some more modern interpretations of the tarot deck and my favorite oracle decks, just to give you an idea of the resources out there that will help you learn about the tarot on your journey of this occult and esoteric practice. So let's get started. So, before I explain these books, first I want to tell you how I came across them. My great grandfather was an astrologer and the editor of Astrology Guide magazine from the 1930s to the 1960s. His name was Dal Lee. You can find his books, such as Understanding the Occult, Astrology, Dictionary of Astrology, and some other publications he made over his lifetime. My great grandfather collected an enormous amount of occult books, first editions, and they were published between 1910, some of them a little earlier, and until 1970, around the time of his death. So when I was studying his library of books, I found these particular books about the tarot. There are many other titles about astrology, mind power, manifestation, the pyramids, ancient wisdom. The list goes on. But this was a small selection of books that I found in his library that I want to share with you, most of which I have read. And I just want everyone to have access to this important wisdom and philosophical study of the tarot because I believe it's being lost in modern times. Uh, so let's go back 100 years ago to this kind of renaissance of this idea that we can learn a lot about the soul journey from a deck of cards and also do a little bit of divination. The first book I'm going to show you is the original Rider-Waite. It comes with a text guide to this deck, the Rider-Waite tarot deck, and also a pictorial guide to the tarot. So these two books are companions. This deck was published around 1915 by Arthur Waite, and he wrote this book to explain each of the cards in his own interpretation. This is one of the most common decks used now. You probably recognize it. And I also use this deck extensively because it's so recognizable and so universally understandable to modern readers of tarot. But don't be fooled. Even though I prefer this deck, I know that the pictures and depictions on each card have morphed the archetypes of tarot a little bit. He made this deck so relatable to anyone, and each of the pictures so easy to read and understand that it makes it very accessible for anyone learning to do tarot and tap into their intuition. So I definitely think it's one of the best decks you can use, although we must remember that Arthur Waite changed some of the symbolism in each of the cards. So you can find these books easily on Amazon. The original Rider-Waite Key to the Tarot and a pictorial Key to the Tarot. So, moving on to the next deck, because that still is one of the most common decks used today. It's survived over 100 years. Amazing. It's the 110th anniversary of that deck coming out. The next book I want to show you is The Tarot by Manly P. Hall. And Manly P. Hall also created this deck, the Knapp-Hall Tarot, also known as the Revised New Art Tarot. And this deck can be found at the website for the Philosophical Research Society. This is a beautiful deck, and this was published in 1929. The book was published to explain how we view the tarot and what do we really know about its origins. It's very interesting. You can see it's very thin, and it gives a really good historical understanding of the ancient roots of this practice and this philosophy. The tarot is not just a deck of cards. It's not just for divination. It is something that has existed in the human mind and the human psyche for thousands of years, maybe since the beginning of human history. And Manly P. Hall is really interested in that book in explaining that we may not know everything about the tarot. Everybody's ideas about it are different, and that books and decks like the Rider-Waite tarot that I just showed you actually really shift the ideas that have already existed for hundreds of years before that. And there's a lot of controversial opinions, people who disagree about the uses of these cards and what they are. Is it a book? Is it the book of thought? Is it a tool for divination? Is it a card game? Is it just something that the gypsies used to make it seem like they were very mystical? I think after reading this book, I think what Manly P. Hall is trying to tell us, I agree with him, is that the tarot has shifted over thousands of years, and in modern Europe, also medieval and Renaissance Europe, it really took on a kind of Christian tone. But before that, it existed as something else. It was Hermetic. It was Egyptian. Probably goes back to Atlantis. So the next book I want to show you is called The Sacred Tarot by C.C. Zain. And this is my favorite book about the tarot. This is like my Bible. You can see it's thicker than the other books, and it explains in detail what each card means and also some spreads you can use. It also teaches you things like how to interpret your name in a numerological way to see and understand your life path. And it connects tarot to astrology and numerology. All these things come from the same source. You'll understand that if you read the book. That book comes with this deck, the Brotherhood of Light Egyptian Tarot. The Brotherhood of Light is a society that exists in New Mexico, and they have wonderful free events on Zoom all the time. They're a really wonderful group of people. They've existed since around the 1920s when C.C. Zain, the author of The Sacred Tarot, founded the society, the Brotherhood of Light. And you can buy this deck and the book from them. I think their website is light.org, but it's also on Amazon. And these cards are Egyptian style. So you can see that it's very different from the Rider-Waite deck that we just looked at, because the minor arcana don't have the pictures on them. Like, let's see an example. The minor arcana in the Rider-Waite deck all have specific pictures. But in older decks, you were supposed to know what each number meant because it's numerology. If you understand the numbers 0 to 9, then you can decipher any meaning of any card in the deck. And again, if you want to know more about that, I recommend reading The Sacred Tarot, which is such a good book. So moving on to the next book, I'm going to show you The Tarot of the Bohemians. And this book is by Papus. Again, these are all books that were in my great-grandfather's library. So the Tarot of the Bohemians, I wish I could show you the original book in my great-grandfather's library. It is gorgeous. It's this deep purple color with, what do you call it, relief engraving in it. And anyway, you can buy the reprint of it like I did on Amazon to read. It's fascinating. It says similar things that Manly P. Hall and the Sacred Tarot tell you in those books, which is that the ideas of tarot have existed for thousands of years and changed a little bit over time, but it is something that has been preserved by the wise ones of antiquity. Society would have obliterated these ideas and they might have been lost forever if people, adepts, secret societies hadn't taken care of this wisdom, and then they put it into a deck of cards, which helped preserve the philosophy of the soul and made it seem like an innocent game or tool. And you can read in the Tarot of the Bohemians, they explain that the gypsies in Europe were the ones that helped bridge that gap by making it seem like something that's actually a sin or a vice. It tricked people into that mindset instead of seeing that it is actually deep soul wisdom. Very clever to hide the most impactful wisdom about the soul journey in a deck of playing cards. So I'm showing you this deck because in the Tarot of the Bohemians, the Symbolic Tarot of Wirth is referenced as one of the best decks you can have. Another one is the Tarot de Marseille, which this is a 1930 reprint, but the Tarot de Marseille has been around for quite a while. In Manly P. Hall's book, the tarot that I mentioned earlier, he said that France, for a long time in the Renaissance period, had the monopoly on printing tarot decks. So the Tarot de Marseille was one of the most widely used decks in that time period. And you can see that these cards also depict the minor arcana not as having pictures, but as just showing the number or a design, and you are meant to know what each of those cards means just based on the number and the suit. The last book I'm going to show you is The Tarot by Paul Foster Case. And this is similar to the copy that was in my great-grandfather's collection. It's not that hard to find the first editions of this book, but you can get it on Amazon in this format or any other book retailer. And I haven't read this book yet. Why am I telling you about a book I haven't read? Because it was in my great-grandfather's collection. If he had it, it must have been a great reference for the tarot in his time. And this book was also written around the 1920s. So I like to go back to older wisdom whenever I can, instead of things that people have made up in recent times about the tarot. This book goes with this deck called The Builders of the Adytum, the Tarot. And you can get this also easily on Amazon. That's where I got it. And each card is black and white. It says that you can color it in and it makes it truly a reflection of yourself, which is an important esoteric practice. It's a really interesting deck. This is only the major arcana, but it lists some amazing truths about the self, which I'm not going to take up your time to read right now, but it's all very interesting, very esoteric, very occult. What does that mean? Esoteric means what's within, turning the perspective and focus within, which is very important for living a joyful and purposeful life. So I've shown you all the books that I wanted to, but I also have some other decks that I thought it would be fun to show you, just my favorite tarot decks. So one of the pretty decks I'm going to show you is the Rainbow Connection deck, and it's a deck of cards that are all about the Muppets. So I really like this deck. I think it's fun. It's only the major arcana, and as far as I know, you can only find it on Etsy. Etsy is a great place to find really interesting independently created tarot decks. And, you know, it's always good to support independent artists. Okay. The next deck I'm going to show you is this one, the Mystical Medleys Tarot deck. I got this a few years ago when I just wanted to kind of branch out a little bit. As you can probably tell, I think these like very cartoony decks are really cute. So each of these cards, even in the minor arcana, do have the pictures just like the Rider-Waite deck. So if you rely on those depictions to kind of give you an idea of what's going on in the card, this is also a good deck to use. Very cute. Okay. And then another tarot deck, one of my favorites from maybe it was my first deck I ever used, was the white Newman tarot deck. A Sacred Animal Tarot, it says. And these all come with guidebooks too, by the way. I never look at them. I read tarot from the intuition, but they are sometimes fun to read, these little cute little books that come with the decks. So this one you can see has these beautiful drawings on them, which still do kind of match up pretty well to the original archetypes that are meant to be in the tarot. This was always my favorite card in this deck, the High Priestess. So now I want to show you some of my favorite oracle decks. What's the difference between a tarot deck and an oracle deck? Well, tarot is very specific. There are a certain number of cards and archetypes. There's major arcana and minor arcana. And oracle decks can be whatever the creator wants them to be. So that's kind of exciting. So I do have fun with oracle decks. The archetypes in them are sometimes really great and sometimes they're not. So I found a few that I really like. They have very, very, very varied archetypes in them. And it's just fun. So I have this one, the Charming Cryptids Oracle deck, my favorite oracle deck. And this one, if you know what a cryptid is, it's all about kind of mythological monsters and creatures. But each of them really do have an interesting story behind them, which brings a certain aspect of life to the situation. So in the guidebook, which I do read, the creator, by the way, she also created the Rainbow Connection deck, so you should grab both of them on her Etsy. It's created by Madeline Priebe, The Art of Madeline. Anyway, the guidebook tells you about each of these creatures, so it's kind of a history lesson at the same time as just being a fun way to do some divination. And then the last deck I'm going to show you today is this oracle deck, the Animal Apothecary. So this one tells you very specific things on each card. Action leads to success. Claim your power. Magnetized through gratitude. The pictures in this deck are really kooky sometimes, and I don't know what they have to do with the words on the cards, but they actually give a very nice kind of spread of archetypes and messages that you might be seeking in any reading about your life. So, Animal Apothecary Oracle deck. So I'm going to stop there, even though I have at least 12,000 other decks that I haven't shown you in this video. That would take hours. But if you'd like a reading with me, I'm always available for bookings. Maybe not always, but I'm available. And you can see how to book a session with me through my website, wellnessoneness.com. And I'll use some of these decks in each reading. I really enjoy doing readings about the spiritual path. So if you would like to know anything about your spiritual awakening, common topic is also relationships, love, twin flames. But I also love to talk about career, money, abundance, and any other topic you can think of. We can find a way to ask the cards and the universe for the answers that you seek. So I hope to work with you, and thank you for watching this video. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.